up, guys? Thanks for checking out this episode of Cory's Car Review. We're joined again by Joe Smith. And Joe, I want to tell you, thank you for joining us again.
Oh, you're welcome.
In a different setting. If you guys don't recognize him, go check out the video we did with him at the Route 66 Museum in Sapulpa.
The Vintage Chevrolet Club of America has been existed since 1961, and we started what we call the Southern Spring Tour for 1954 and older cars, and 1998 at Fin and Feather Resort at Lake Tenkiller. We took a couple of years off during COVID, so this is our 25th Southern Spring Tour, and we felt like it was appropriate to have it in Oklahoma since we started in Oklahoma in the first year. Now, through the years, we've had it in Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, Alabama, Kansas. This year we have 30 cars. We used to always have 50, but we got people aging out. We don't have as many people as we used to have. So there's 30 cars this year, a little over 60 people. On this tour, we're headquartered in Stillwater. On Monday, we went to Perkins, Oklahoma. On Tuesday, we went to near Agra to Wheels of the Past. Then we went to the backside of Cushing, the backside of Drumright, and we had lunch at the Tidewater Winery on the southeast side of Drumright. Then we left and came back through Yale, Oklahoma. Then we came back on the old Highway 51, which was really, really rough. It was shaking these cars good. And we stopped at a famous Ford parts dealer. Now, here we got 60 Chevrolet people going to see Ford parts. Today, we started in Stillwater. We came down through Red Fork and through Marlin and drove down Grand Avenue, went out to the lake, drove around the old Grand Prix racetrack, made 2 laps, and now we're here. And then we're going to go to the Marlin Mansion and have lunch and tour the Marlin Mansion. In the afternoon, we'll go to the Conoco Museum, and then we'll go back the same way we came and stop at the 101 Ranch before going back to Stillwater. Tomorrow, we'll go to Guthrie, and in Guthrie, we'll tour the Scottish Rite. And we'll have lunch in the first capital of Oklahoma.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And then we're going to turn everybody loose in Guthrie. And then in the afternoon, we'll go back through Mall Hall, stop in Mall Hall and have a piece of cake. And then we'll go back to Stillwater. On Friday, we're going to go to Pawnee, and we'll park around the courthouse square and tour whatever's tourable in downtown Pawnee. And then we'll go out to Pawnee Bill's for lunch. And then on Friday evening, we'll have a farewell banquet.
You mentioned the Grand Prix racetrack.
Yes.
I wonder how many people watching from Ponca that don't realize that was a racetrack.
Yeah, I did not. And I've been out to the lake before.
I don't know.
We got one gentleman with us. You see the 46 Chevrolet pickup right straight across there?
Oh, yeah, the green and black one?
Yeah. Well, in the 1960s, he drove on that track.
Really?
As one of the participants.
This is yours, right?
This pickup's a 1950 Chevrolet. It's pretty well, some of it's underneath's been restored, and the interior's been restored because the interior was full of mice nest and snake skins. So we had to gut the interior, start all over, get rid of all that. We have not put any paint on it.
But I think it looks perfect just like that.
Yeah, but we put brakes on it and new brake, everything on the brakes, brake lines, everything. I had to put a new, the original motor ran me about 1,000 miles and then it quit. So I had I think that's about a 1960 Chevrolet motor in there. It's a 235 6-cylinder motor. So it came with a 216, so now it's got a 235. It's got a 513 rear end. So with the old motor, the 216, my top speed was 40 to 45.
I was going to ask you that question.
Now I can go 45 to 50.
So how long have you had this one?
My in-laws bought this pickup used in 1959, and it was bright red then.
Okay.
And they used to always keep it in a shed till at some point in time they got a car they'd rather keep in the shed than this one. And then this one ended up kind of like in a field. You know, the wheels had sunk into the rims and the dirt. They hadn't been started in a few years. And we drug it home and got it going. The cow vent, we had it closed, and this morning it started getting warm, so I opened it. My wife's covering her face thinking dust is going to get all over, because when she's a kid, when they opened that, you'd get covered with dust, but there's no dust in it anymore. Now, I'll show you one thing. I would walk around this thing with my father-in-law, and I didn't see it for many, many, many years because they had it in the shed. And it was a shed where you'd have to walk in like this.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And when I come around, walking around it with him, I said, do you have the original tailgate? He said, well, it's somewhere on the property. And we'd agreed I could have it. And my wife and I went home, and he called us a day or so later and said, he can't have that pickup. And she said, that's okay. I don't want him to have it. And he says, I did a lot of work into that wheat scoop, and he's going to take it off. So next time I went there, I walked around it with him, and I said, I'd have to keep that. I could never replace that.
Yeah.
And we've honored his memory by not undoing anything he did.
Yeah.
And I found the tailgate. The tailgate was only 10 yards from this pickup.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in a shed, in a lean-to shed.
Yeah. Probably been there for years and years and thought, I'll put it here while I remember where it's at, and then you forgot where to put it at.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you inviting us out here again.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, we're here with Bob and Veda. I want to tell you guys, thank you, and I appreciate you sharing your story with us, not just about your truck, but you both have a pretty cool story about the racetrack here in Ponca that you guys were a part of years ago.
I was racing out there, and I was up in timing and scoring.
Really?
So
Yeah.
I would run the watch, and he'd race the track.
Yeah,
So
well,
what kind of-
actually, when I first started racing, our kids were small enough that she was over in the pits, kind of looking after them while I was racing.
I thought you were going to say back then you just threw them in the car seat and they went with you.
Well, almost. It was pretty relaxed times. The whole infield would be filled up with spectators. There would be 10,000 or more spectators.
Wow, that many. What kind of car did you race? Did you race several different ones?
No, I've only raced one. It's a Austin Healey Sprite Mark I, which is more affectionately known as a bug eye in the U.S. or a frog eye in England. Only about 1,500 pounds and has a little 1 liter or 60 cubic inch engine in it, about 50 horsepower. But at that time, it was kind of the equivalent to what people would think of as the Mazda Miata. Now, first 2 years, 59 and 60 models was this Mark I, which is a little bit distinctive, and the bug eye or frog eye designation comes from when they originally had intended to have pop-up headlights on the hood, and they decided they couldn't afford that, so they just kind of set a headlight in the sole kind of like this up on the hood. And so looking at the thing, it kind of like you're looking head on into a toad or a frog. I drove to the track the first couple times. You drive out there and put masking tape over your headlight lenses, so if you hit something, it won't
shatter everywhere.
won't shatter and everything, and then drive home if it's still running. Often they would get a full field of maybe 30 of these
Wow.
H production bug eye sprites all out there. It was kind of the most popular class. So
how fast would you get up to in that?
I don't know. On this track, I probably got up to somewhere around 90 on the back straight.
Okay.
Sort of the advertised maximum highway speed on them was something like 80 mile per hour, and I had done a few things to the engines. I made it a little bit better. I wasn't a real competitive racer and didn't go to all out extremes on it. But
You had to drive it home.
Well, no. Well, by the time I raced up here, I had gotten my national license, and I had already, ruined 2 engines learning how to put them together. And I had a little bit better engine by that time, but run the Lake Garnett track, which up in Kansas is a kind of a similar type, only on steroids. It had even a more vivid history than the Ponca City track when they reopened it after it had gotten shut down because of kind of the rowdy crowds in the late 60s and early 70s. And by that time, Hallett motor racing track over near Tulsa was opening up, and I quit racing then, and I was chief of timing and scoring for that, but we would come up and work the timing and scoring for the races at Ponca City until the last one. I think we were doing all of it. There were 2 fatalities out there at Ponca City, and it was scary. Just driving around it today, didn't realize quite how close some of those trees are to the corners and everything.
Right.
And when I started, the only protection was there was maybe a hay bale sitting in front of a tree stump or a tree, tree or something like that. And eventually they would have some water barrels around them. But the insurance company that insures the liability on that kept setting higher and higher rules, and it just wasn't practical. Some of the Armco that's still kind of over in the northeast corner, that was put in there because for race protection and everything. the fellow that lived right across the street from where you go onto the back straight, he was never very happy on race days with the cars coming up there, and some of them wouldn't make that turn and go over into into his yard, and
man.
most of the spectator parking was close to there. Probably the last race I did out there was maybe in the early 70s.
What can you tell us about your truck that's behind you here?
Well, it's a 1946 Chevrolet, and my dad bought it used when it was about 10 years old, and I was just kind of leaving the farm up in Kansas, and I always liked it. We call it the Art Deco because it's just the 41s through 46 have this style. And there wasn't any production from 42, late 45 or 46 because of the war effort. They're building military vehicles. The basic cab is exactly what you find on a lot of the old military trucks. They just had a different, military type front end on them. But it was kind of the standard Chevrolet product, and the color and everything is just kind of the no extras, the way it would look coming out. That was the color you got, the Brewster green with black fenders.
So this is the original color combination for this truck?
This is the original.
Okay.
He eventually got another pickup to replace it, and I'd gone off and left the farm by then. And I said, "Don't ever let that thing get away. I want to restore it sometime." And finally, when he had his farm sale moved off, I spent a weekend kind of getting the brakes working again and everything. It had been parked out behind the barn, and my older son and I drove it down from up north of Wichita to Tulsa in a snowstorm.
Really?
And I used it for about 10 years, kind of off and on as just kind of a utility pickup, and it got parked, and I joined the Vintage Chevrolet Club, which is what we're here with today, to start learning how to restore cars, and started going to swap meets and picking up things that I would need, and kind of like something like 40 years expired in there, and I still hadn't gotten it started on this, and I'd retired and decided that I was never going to get it done if I didn't get some help. So we wound up with something that was kind of show quality, and so through the Vintage Chevrolet Club, I've been to a number of their meets that have field judging, where the cars are judged very carefully for their original quality and everything. And I was lucky enough in 2002 to come up with a thing that they have at the end of the year of those cars in different categories that have been judged. This was judged the best of the commercial vehicles.
Wow.
And I've gotten a lot of compliments of how original it is. We went to the point of the engine in it is called a stove bolt 6 because a lot of the screws in it look like old stove bolts, and the fenders are bolted on with just round-headed slotted screws with square nuts on them and everything, and that's the way we put it back together. So the beauty part of it is what I think is this front end, the grill, that just the way that all kind of fit together, and like I say, it was just really on 2 production years, 41 and 46, that they did that. It's just a regular half-ton pickup, and all goes together. The interior is nothing special, very utilitarian, and a lot of the instrument panel looks a lot like a 41 to 46 Chevy car dash. A stove bolt 6 engine is a 216 cubic inch inline 6. I think rated at about 85 horsepower. Standard transmission was a 3-speed that actually second and third gear were synchronized, but this one has the heavy-duty truck transmission in it, which is a 4-speed, and it's non-synchronized. You have to double clutch to
Really?
shift gears, and it growls, and it has an old granny gear that's probably good for pulling stumps.
Was this an original?
That's an unusual part of it. You know, a lot of the stuff on trucks is not very fancy, but for some reason they went to the special thing, and we had to do a lot of research to get the colors just right. Put this stripe around it with a pinstripe in it.
Okay.
You know, that's about the only real detail, except other for the chrome work on the grill. Partial air conditioning, and
Right. That's part of your 240 air
when
conditioning.
people come around and look at me on the floorboard, there's always people ask, what are all those pedals for? You know, a lot of the kids nowadays don't even know what a clutch pedal is.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a starter pedal over there, and over here, right along the edge, there's a little button down there, and that's the high beam switch. And then there's a kind of a little lever on the side of the gear shift thing, which locks out reverse. Choke on the dashboard that you have to use sometimes to get started. Crank up here on a hot day.
Oh, for those
You
windows.
crank it out, you can get all kinds of good ventilation and bugs and stuff. One original fender and one original running board, but the others were beat up kind of bad and had some rust in them. And we've had the door panels have been reskinned on the outside, and some of the structure rebuilt.
That's a sharp-looking truck, and I
okay.
want to tell you thank you for
You bet.
sharing it with us. And it was nice to meet you, and I appreciate you being a part of it.